On a quiet evening in Norfolk, Virginia, a routine traffic stop turned tragic when a police officer shot Lieutenant James Carter, a Black Army officer, sparking outrage and a swift, unprecedented response from the Pentagon that left the nation stunned. Lieutenant James Carter, a 32-year-old active-duty Army officer, was driving home from a training session at Naval Station Norfolk. He was in his civilian clothes, behind the wheel of his SUV, when Officer Daniel Harris, a 15-year veteran of the Norfolk Police Department, pulled him over for an expired registration tag. Carter, a combat veteran who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, was known among his peers for his calm demeanor and strict adherence to protocol. He'd been stationed in Norfolk for 3 years, living off base with his wife, Erica, and their 2 young children. Harris approached Carter's vehicle with his hand already on his holster, his body tense. Carter, aware of the heightened scrutiny Black drivers often face, kept his hands visible on the steering wheel. He informed Harris he was an Army officer and had a concealed carry permit for the firearm in his glove compartment, which he disclosed immediately to avoid any misunderstanding. Harris's tone was sharp, demanding Carter exit the vehicle. Carter complied slowly, keeping his movements deliberate, but the situation escalated quickly. Witnesses later reported hearing Harris shout commands, his voice growing louder as Carter calmly tried to explain his military status. What happened next was captured on Harris's body camera, though the footage wouldn't be released to the public for weeks. According to the official report, Harris claimed Carter reached toward his waist, prompting him to fire 3 shots. 2 struck Carter, 1 in the shoulder, 1 in the chest. Carter collapsed, critically injured but alive. Bystanders, including a nurse who happened to be nearby, rushed to his aid, applying pressure to his wounds until paramedics arrived. Carter was airlifted to a hospital where he underwent emergency surgery. News of the shootings spread rapidly. Carter's military status made the incident particularly explosive. By the next morning, local activists were organizing protests outside the Norfolk Police Department, demanding Harris's arrest. Carter's wife, Erica, a schoolteacher, spoke at a press conference, her voice steady despite her visible pain. She described James as a dedicated soldier and father, someone who'd survived war zones only to be gunned down in his own community. Her words resonated, amplifying calls for justice. The Norfolk Police Department issued a statement, placing Harris on administrative leave pending an investigation. But the response from the Pentagon was what set this case apart. Within 48 hours, high-ranking officials from the Department of Defense issued a rare public statement condemning the shooting. They revealed Carter was part of an elite unit tasked with sensitive operations, though they didn't disclose details. The Pentagon's involvement was unusual. Military leadership typically avoids commenting on civilian law enforcement matters, but Carter's status as an active-duty officer with a distinguished record prompted swift action. The Pentagon statement called for a federal investigation, bypassing local authorities. By the end of the week, the Department of Justice announced it was taking over the case, citing potential civil rights violations. Harris was arrested and charged with attempted murder and excessive use of force. The charges alone were significant, but what came next shocked even seasoned observers. The Pentagon, in coordination with Virginia's governor, announced the creation of a task force to review interactions between military personnel and local law enforcement. The task force, led by a retired general, was given a mandate to recommend reforms within 90 days. Carter's recovery was slow but steady. From his hospital bed, he gave a brief statement through his attorney, expressing gratitude for the support but urging calm. He spoke of his commitment to his country and his hope that the incident would lead to change. His words carried weight, not just because of his military service, but because of the quiet dignity he maintained in the face of trauma. The community response was mixed. Protests continued, with thousands marching in Norfolk and other cities, carrying signs reading, "Protect our soldiers" and "Justice for Carter." Some praised the Pentagon's swift action, seeing it as a sign of accountability. Others, including local activists, argued it shouldn't take a military officer's shooting to prompt such a response. They pointed to countless other cases of police violence against Black civilians that hadn't garnered the same attention. Harris's trial became a focal point. Prosecutors presented evidence of racial bias, including text messages from Harris's phone containing derogatory remarks about black drivers. The body camera footage, when finally released, showed Carter's hands raised before the shots were fired, contradicting Harris's claim of a threatening movement. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with testimony from Carter's fellow soldiers, who described his professionalism, and from witnesses who corroborated his compliance during the stop. Harris's defense argued he acted out of fear for his safety, but the jury wasn't convinced. He was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 12 years in prison. The Pentagon's task force delivered its report 2 months later. It recommended mandatory de-escalation training for police departments near military bases, body camera audits, and a national database to track officers with histories of excessive force. Most controversially, it proposed federal oversight for any incident involving active-duty personnel, a move that sparked debate about jurisdiction. Some law enforcement unions called it overreach. Others, including Carter's family, saw it as a necessary step to protect those who serve. Carter returned to limited duty 6 months after the shooting. He declined most media requests, focusing instead on his recovery and family. Erica became an advocate, speaking at events about the need for systemic change. The Norfolk Police Department implemented new training protocols, though some officers grumbled about the changes. The city also settled with Carter's family for an undisclosed amount, funds they used to start a scholarship for local youth pursuing military or public service careers. The incident left a lasting mark. Carter's case was cited in congressional hearings on police reform, and his name became a rallying cry for those demanding accountability. The Pentagon's response, while unprecedented, set a new standard for how the military engages with civilian law enforcement. For many, it was a reminder that even those who serve their country aren't immune to its deeper issues. For Carter, it was a chapter he never expected to live through, but one he hoped would make a difference.